Hi there, in this screencast I'm going to go over some of the material that we went over in class, and it's the material that will be found on Wednesday's test on array lists, recursion, and class definition. Okay, so I made the problem we did in class much simpler, and basically instead of dealing with even and odd values, all it does is replace the largest value in an array list of integers or it replaces 0, with the largest value that is in an array list of integers and returns that array list. So the first thing I might want to do is find what the largest value in the array list is. And now something that I should have brought up in class is that you can reference the largest value without needing to know what that 2,700,000 or 700 million value is, and you can do that by saying integer.max underscore value. It's a built-in constant to Java. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say int value equals integer dot min value. Let me make sure I got that right. Yes. Okay, the smallest one is min underscore value and the largest one is max underscore value. And then I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I less than arrl dot size, I plus plus, and I'm going to say if arrl dot get I greater than value, then value equals arrl dot get I. Alright, so now I know what the value is of the largest integer in the array list, and we'll just assume that the largest value is not what the minimum integer value is. And now I just need to replace zeros by that value. So I'm going to have another array list or loop that goes through the array list. This time I'm going to use a for each loop. No, I can't because I'm doing assignments. So I'm just going to have to do int I equals 0, I less than arrl dot size, and I plus plus. And I'm going to say if arrl dot get I equals value, then I will say, let's see, arrl dot set, and then in the I position, I am going to put value. And then I'm going to say return arrl. And that should do it. Okay, in the next problem, I changed it a little bit from what we did today, and I made it so that each letter needs to appear, or the letters of the word need to appear in consecutive order, but consecutive order moving backwards. Okay, so what I would do instead of, well, actually, I'll just modify let me just modify my the existing code I had. So instead of adding the word at the end of the list, I'm just going to add the word, or I'm going to add the letter substring of word to the front of the list. So it's actually pretty easy to do. I say a dot add, and then I say 0, comma, word dot substring I comma I plus 1. All right, instead of that, so that puts the word in the, which is a single character. Each consecutive word that it comes into is going to go in front of the other one as it scans the word from front to back, or from the first character to the end. And that would do it. Okay, in selection sort, you search for the smallest or largest value, depending on what order you're sorting. In the pool of unsorted elements, and add to the end of the sorted list. And you're building the sorted list as you go along. In insertion sort, on the other hand, you place or insert the next element in the unsorted list into the sorted list. Well, into its correct position in the sorted list. Both of these algorithms are grow exponentially with the number of lists, because you're going to need 2 loops. And the outer loop is going to go typically from 1 to n, and then on average, the inner loop is going to have to go at least n over 2 times on average. In selection sort, it would take, you have to perform an independent or a search for each the character there, or the next word element that's going to go in the sorted portion of the list. So you have to go all the way through the list. And in insertion sort, you take the next element in the unsorted portion, but you have to have a loop that goes through the sorted portion of the list to insert it in its proper place. So that means you're going to have one loop that goes through for every character or every element, and then another loop inside to kind of select or insert the element. Okay, so let's look again at these recursive calls and recursive methods. So here the question is, what is do something recursively 3? What's going to happen when you call do something recursively 3? Okay, so I'm going to put a 3 in for n, and the first thing that happens is n is not less than or equal to 3, so we're going to have system.out.println yes, and then we do something recursively n minus 1. So at this point, n minus 1 is 2, so we're going to call do something with 2. 2 is not less than or equal to 0, so it's going to print, once again, print yes, tack on a yes, and it's going to call do something recursively 1. Okay, 1 is not less than or equal to 0, so it's going to say add another yes and then call itself with 0. And 0 is, when it calls itself with 0, 0 is less than or equal to 0, so it's just going to add no to the end. Okay, then the next one, if I call h of 3, what happens? Okay, well, h of 3, 3 is not equal to 0, so it does return h n minus 1 plus 3 times n, and n is 3, so it's really going to do h of 2 plus 3 times 3. Okay, then h of 2 needs to be evaluated, and h of 2 is going to end up being h of 1 plus 3 times 2. Then h of 1 needs to be evaluated, and that's going to turn out to be h of 0 plus 3 times 1. Then h of 0 needs to be evaluated, and that is 0. So 0 is going to be replace h of 0, and then plus 3 is 3. That's going to replace the h of 1. So 3 plus 6 is 9. It's going to replace h of 2, and 9 plus 3 times 3 is 18. So that's going to replace h of 3. So you would get 18. Okay, calling a method with an object as the argument versus a primitive value or variable. If you modify the object using its alias parameter name inside a method, the changes to the actual object that you used as the argument will be permanent even when the method is or will still be in effect when the method call is over. Whereas if you call a method using a primitive variable as the argument, no changes actually are made to the value assigned to that variable. You're essentially just sending a number into a method, and they call this calling by value versus well, actually, all method calls in with primitive variables are called with the value only, not the variable itself, so no changes are made to the variable. Okay, so instantiating an object and declaring a reference variable. Okay, so if I have a object variable or a class named this class, okay, I may make variables whose type is this class. So I might say this class X. That creates a reference to this class object. I haven't actually created the object. To create the object, I need to say X equals new this class, and which we'll call the constructor of this class, and actually create an object, reserve it in the memory of the computer, and it will be persistent in the memory as long as it has some variable pointing to it. Okay, so let's see. If I make a class with the following characteristics, a string variable named, so let's see, what did I call it? Some class. So I'm going to say public class some class, and what's going to be in there, let's see, a static variable named word. So I'm going to say public static string word, two instance variables. I'm going to say, actually, you know what, this should be private. Private static, and what are they supposed to be? I think int variables. No, these aren't statics. They're just private int a, comma, and b. Two constructors. Okay, one, a no args constructor. So I'm going to say public some class, and I'm just going to make up arbitrary values for A and B. Okay, and then one that takes arguments and calls the no args constructor. So I'm going to say public some class int a1 comma int b1, and let's say just to let's say that this also printed the values. A plus B. So now my new constructor might say this, okay, and then it would say, let's see, actually, you know what? That's not a good example. Let's say the other one just said system dot out dot print line. Well, we'll just leave it the way it was. This, and then I might say A equals A1 and B equals B1. So that's going to call the no args constructor first. It's going to print out 6, 4, and then it's going to assign whatever values were provided for the parameters A1 and B1. All right, and then it says a static method that does something with a static variable. So I might say public static. Let's see, what else did it say? Returns an int value 2 times the length of the static variable word. So I might say public static int, length of word. And I might say, return word dot length. Okay, and then getter and setter methods for A and B. I'm just going to do them for, let's see, document, edit, add a page here. I'm going to say public void, well actually let's do the getter method first. Public int get A, and then it would just be return A. And then the setter method is going to be public void set B or set A. And that's going to have one parameter. So I'm going to say A equals A1. All right, and then lastly, an instance thrice the sum of, which returns an int value 3 times the sum of A and 5. Okay, so I'm going to say public int thrice the sum of, I'm going to say return 3 times A plus 5. All right, so that's the review for Wednesday's test. If you happen to watch this, send me the message, I really did watch this. So email me, I really did watch this. All right, we will see you on Monday and Wednesday. Cheers.